It was an unusually stormy evening in Portland, Oregon, and the clouds in the sky seemed to roll and churn like something alive. The sky above was cloaked in a dark, ominous blanket, heavy with the weight of a thunderstorm waiting to happen. Beneath the towering storm clouds, the hum of Portland International Airport echoed. The usual sound of travelers bustling around, hurrying to gates and shuffling between terminals, was interrupted by a strange calm. It was as if everyone was waiting for something, though none could put a finger on it. Inside the terminal, a man in his mid-40s walked with a purposeful stride toward the ticket counter of Northwest Orient Airlines. His attire was unremarkable to the casual observer, an impeccably tailored black suit, a neatly pressed tie, and polished shoes that glinted under the overhead lights. His hair was dark and slicked back, his face clean-shaven with no distinguishing marks. Nothing about his appearance screamed danger, yet his eyes, those eyes, gave off an unsettling calm, as if the man had seen far too much to be rattled by anything in this world. He made his way through the airport with an air of quiet confidence, not drawing attention but not blending in either. He was somewhere between a shadow and a presence, moving like someone on a mission. At the ticket counter, he paid in cash for a one-way ticket from Portland to Seattle. The name on the ticket read simply, Dan Cooper. The clerk didn't think much of it. Travelers came and went all day long, and most names were just fleeting whispers in a busy airport. The man smiled politely, collected his boarding pass, and made his way to the gate without a word. As he walked down the terminal, his brown briefcase tucked under his arm, no one could have predicted that in just a few hours, this unassuming man would change the course of history. Cooper boarded Flight 305, an aging Boeing 727, around 5:45 p.m. The storm outside had intensified, and the atmosphere in the plane was thick with unease as the aircraft prepared to depart. A flight of only 36 passengers and 6 crew members, the plane was small by today's standards, but this made it all the more intimate, a perfect setting for what would soon unfold. As the plane ascended into the dark clouds above Portland, the passengers settled in. Some fidgeted nervously, some spoke quietly with their seatmates, and a few watched the rain streak across the windows, their minds distracted by the sound of the storm. Cooper sat quietly in his seat, his eyes fixed on the window, as though he were waiting for something, his calm demeanor betraying no hint of nervousness or anticipation. He ordered a bourbon and soda from the flight attendant, his voice smooth, polite, almost as if he were on a business trip rather than in the midst of something far darker. He never spoke much to the other passengers, preferring the quiet solitude of his thoughts. But what no one knew, as the plane leveled out and the flight continued, was that Cooper had a bomb with him, a real one, or so he claimed. And inside the briefcase was a plan that was as precise as it was dangerous. As the plane neared the halfway point of its journey, with nothing more than a soft hum of engines and the occasional rattle of turbulence, Cooper did something that would shift the course of history forever. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folded note. When flight attendant Florence Schaffner came down the aisle to offer drinks, Cooper handed the note to her without a word. She, distracted with her own duties, thought it was just another passenger trying to get her attention. But then he spoke softly, just loud enough for her to hear over the hum of the plane's engines. "You'd better read that note. I have a bomb." Schaffner froze, the air around her growing thick. She took the note from his hand with trembling fingers, unfolding it slowly as the words seared into her mind. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit next to me. This is a hijacking." A chill ran down her spine as she read the note, her heart pounding, her thoughts racing. She couldn't show fear, couldn't let Cooper see her anxiety. But she was terrified. The plane, the passengers, her own life, they were all in the hands of this calm, cold stranger. She turned, her mind racing as she passed the note to the cockpit. The pilots, calm at first, took a moment to process the situation. A bomb, a hijacker, and a stormy night in the sky. The plane was now 30 minutes into its journey to Seattle, and there was no going back. Within minutes, the flight crew had relayed the situation to authorities, and the FBI was alerted. But Cooper, meanwhile, remained calm, his demeanor unshaken as if he were simply a businessman on a minor inconvenience. He ordered a drink, a whiskey, and placed the note on his lap. He glanced out the window again, as though casually observing the turbulent weather that whizzed by, the clouds heavy with the promise of something more. At first, the authorities tried to reason with him, asking for more details about his demands. He was not interested in a lengthy negotiation. He spoke with authority, coolly dictating his needs: $200,000 in cash, unmarked $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and a plane to take him out of the country. He was no amateur. He had thought through every detail of his plan, and every word, every demand was calculated. The crew was ordered to comply. For the next several hours, the plane remained circling above Seattle. Cooper's calm was unnerving. The crew could only follow his orders. They were trapped in the sky with a man who had a bomb and had made it clear that if they crossed him, he wouldn't hesitate to follow through on his threats. The passengers had no idea what was going on. Their peaceful flight now turned into a hostage situation, a nightmare with no end in sight. As the clock ticked, the ground crew worked quickly, preparing the ransom. Meanwhile, Cooper sat quietly, occasionally speaking to the flight attendants, but always with a sense of control. At one point, Florence asked if he was hungry. His response was chilling: "Thank you, but I'm not hungry." He was in complete control, almost as if the plane and its fate were no longer in the hands of the crew. His mind was already several steps ahead. The hours dragged on, and at 8 p.m., the ransom and parachutes were delivered to the aircraft. The authorities had done their part, but this was far from over. Cooper examined the cash carefully, checking the bills for any identifying marks, making sure they were the correct denominations. Then he did something that baffled the crew. He didn't rush. He sat there, in his seat, as if savoring the moment. "I will release the plane again," he said, "but I want it at an altitude of 10,000 feet. The rear air stair will remain open for the duration of the flight." This was an unusual request, but there was no room for negotiation. The crew followed orders, and the plane was prepared for what would come next. The night sky outside was thick with the swirling storm. The engines roared as the plane climbed higher into the black clouds, the turbulence becoming more violent with each passing minute. Cooper remained seated, unfazed by the shaking of the aircraft or the wind that howled outside the plane's fragile hull. He was in complete control. At 8:13 p.m., the unimaginable happened. Cooper unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the rear air stair, and stepped out into the storm. For a brief moment, there was no sound. The pilots, caught off guard, glanced back, but there was nothing there. Just the open stairway, the storm, and an empty seat where Cooper had once sat. In those first moments, the plane continued flying through the dark sky, the engines roaring on as if nothing had changed. But something had changed, something that would never be undone. Cooper was gone. He had leaped into the unknown, into a storm that was unforgiving and merciless. He was out there, somewhere in the night, alone. Cooper's descent was nothing short of a miracle. The wind ripped at him as he fell, his body whipped violently in the storm. The parachute he had chosen was his lifeline, but even that was a gamble. As he descended, the cold rain and high winds threatened to tear him apart. Would the chute open in time? Would he survive the fall? But then, after what felt like an eternity, the chute deployed. Cooper was yanked upward in a violent jolt. The storm lashed at him, and the treetops below seemed to race toward him, eager to claim him. But Cooper did not falter. His training kicked in, his mind racing through the descent. He had trained for this moment, and his resolve was iron. The parachute lines pulled taut, the wind shrieking in his ears, and Cooper adjusted his grip, fighting the pull of gravity. He was still alive. Below him, the forest stretched out, dense, wild, and merciless. He didn't know where he had landed, but he had to move fast. He had to disappear. Cooper landed with a brutal thud, his body rolling as he hit the forest floor. The rain, still coming down in torrents, soaked him instantly. He scrambled to his feet, tearing off the parachute and moving quickly, blending into the trees. The FBI was already in pursuit, but Cooper had planned for this. He knew the wilderness well, and he knew how to disappear. For weeks, the FBI combed the mountains, the rivers, and the forests. They found nothing. No trace of Cooper, just whispers, rumors, and empty leads. Years passed. No one knew where Cooper had gone or if he had even survived the jump. Then, in 1980, something strange happened. A young boy, playing near the Columbia River, discovered something odd: bundles of $20 bills, wrapped in rubber bands, with the distinct markings from the ransom delivery. $5,800 worth of the ransom money. But there was no body. No Cooper. Just the money, perhaps a sign that Cooper had escaped, or perhaps a hint that he had never truly left. The mystery only deepened. Some believed Cooper had died in the wild, his body claimed by the unforgiving landscape. Others thought he had vanished into a life of anonymity, living somewhere far from the reaches of the law. But the truth remains unknown. As for Cooper himself, one thing was certain: he had outwitted the system, left the authorities scrambling, and crafted one of the most daring heists in history. His legacy is more than just a story of money and escape, it's a story of taking risks, facing danger head-on, and never allowing the odds to define you. In the end, Cooper didn't just escape the FBI, he escaped the confines of society itself. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love aviation mysteries, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more incredible stories.